This is Join Us in France, episode 351. 351. Bonjour, I'm Annie Sargent, and Join Us in France is the podcast where we talk about France. Great places to visit in France, French culture, history, gastronomy, and news related to travel during the pandemic. But I know that many of you hope to move to France someday. So today I bring you a conversation with Maria Trenzado about buying a brand new apartment or single-family home in France. She's bought 2 apartments from plans in the past. She's heard me talk to different people about buying existing homes, and she thought, hey, wait a minute. So she explains what it's like buying a brand new condo in France, how she went about it, the advantages, what should you be on the lookout for, all that good stuff. In the first quarter of 2021, developers sold more than 30,000 new dwellings in France. This is a popular option for French people because we're not all cut out for, a house renovation project. You'll find links to a few of the big players in the new construction space in France in the show notes. joinusinfrance.com/351, the numeral. And after my chat with Maria, I'll update you about the pandemic and how things are progressing in France. If you like what we do here at Join Us in France, consider supporting us by visiting joinusinfrance.com/boutique to check out my cookbook, Join Us at the Table, my Paris tours on the Voice Map app, and my itinerary review service, where I help you craft the best vacation in France specifically for you. This week, I'll post photos of Maria's apartment on Instagram. Look for Addicted to France. And the newsletter is going to be back soon. Sign up for it at joinusinfrance.com/newsletter. Bonjour Maria and welcome to Join Us in France.
Bonjour Annie, ça va?
Ça va très bien et vous?
Très bien, très bien.
Very happy to be talking to you about purchasing a home in France, but not the normal way. You do it from plans. Well, which is all, I guess it's normal too, but...
Yes, I know this is a little different than what people usually do, but it's something that I found very affordable, and I like new properties. They don't have a lot of problems for a while, and you don't have to, basically most of the time you don't have to replace anything or do repairs.
Yeah. So how come you've bought, you mentioned that you've bought 2 properties like that in France, brand new ones.
Yes, I have. Why? I've always been a lover of France. I have French ancestry through my paternal grandmother. I started learning French in high school and just had a very deep connection with France.
Mm-hmm.
First time I visited France was in 1980. I have gone just about every year.
Wow.
Since, sometimes several times a year if I can. And I'm planning to retire in France, hopefully in a couple of years.
Cool.
So I wanted to have a home there so I didn't have to worry later on about retirement, trying to look for something.
Right. And you live in Florida right now.
I live in Florida, yes. Yes, I've lived here for a long time.
Uh-huh.
But I really enjoy France for some reason, everything, the culture, the people, the food, and it's something that I want to spend the last part of my life there if I can.
So where are your apartments in France? Which part of France did you pick?
Yeah, I have a townhome in a little tiny village called L'Oriot du Comtat, which is a 15-minute drive to Avignon in Provence, in the Vaucluse region. Then, I have an apartment studio actually that I purchased recently in the 17th arrondissement in the Batignolles neighborhood
Oh.
of Paris.
And they're still building new stuff there. Wow.
Yeah, in that area, what happened was that area was designated for the Olympic Park when France or Paris was bidding the first time for the Olympics, and London got it.
Okay.
So when they did not get the Olympics, they sold the area to different developers, and they have developed a whole set of whole neighborhood, basically, of new, very interesting modern buildings. And around the buildings, or in the center of the buildings, is a huge park that goes on all the way from, let's say, Rue Cardinet, all the way to where the new courthouse is in Paris.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a lovely place.
It is. And then across the street, basically, you have the old part of the Ratignolle with the more traditional Haussmannian buildings. So it's a really nice combination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Paris has a lot of mix and match. So do every city in France, really. There's, occasionally you find a developer that builds right in the middle of an older place.
Right. And the developer of the building that I'm in is Nexity, who coincidentally built the townhouse that I have. So I already had some familiarity with Nexity. And I found them to be a reputable builder. They do good construction. And they guarantee the properties, the construction for about 10 years, as required by law.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us all about the process. How does it work in France?
Okay. The process starts by being curious and looking, especially with the internet, looking into the internet for new build properties. There are a couple of agents. Nexity is one of them. The other one is French Estate Agents, which is, I believe, is Leggett Properties, which is a British company that sells properties in France. Some older properties, some new properties.
So that's Leggett.
Yeah. If I remember, yes.
You wrote it down. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known.
Okay. Because that's something else. And so you contact them and you look first of all to see if they have any new build. And then you got to be careful because sometimes they'll say new build and it's not a new build. It's just a renovated property. So, and there are different laws that apply to each. So you ask them if they have any new builds or if you see any, ask them for a brochure. Nexity also has an English speaking area or section that will send it to you. And then you can start from there, basically looking at it and seeing if you're interested. Most of the time, I bought both sight unseen. The first time, which was back in early 2000s, I had no idea what this place was. I knew it was from the map that it was close to Avignon, but I had never been there. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I just kind of said, what the heck, I'll do it.
Wow. So you're kind of a brave kind of by temperament.
I have I'm a little of a risk taker. I actually went there, one time that I was actually in Switzerland and decided to drive down to Provence to just look and see where the village was. And the development was under construction. So I couldn't really tell anything except, the buildings were being constructed, but at least I had an idea of where.
Right.
And I said, oh, great. It's not far. It's not far from Avignon. It's not far from Carpentras. So I'm like in between a very popular touristy area of Provence. So that's how usually I've done it. As to Paris, the same thing. I knew where the 17th arrondissement was, but I had never been to that part of it. On one of my trips to Paris, I went out there and saw what they were doing. Again, I could not go into the building site, but I could see it from outside. So I had an idea more or less of where it was going to be. But it's the thing is to make sure that even if you don't go and see the area, that you kind of do your research as to more or less where it is. Is it near a major town? Is it in a major town?
Right.
What the infrastructure is, the roads, is there a nearby airport or train station?
Right. It has to suit you as far as where it is, because that's not going to change.
Right. And most of these developments are like communities. They'll do, mine is the one in the south is a secure community. In Paris, obviously, it's a building that's also super secured, but most of them are made in communities as opposed to, individual independent house somewhere.
Right. Yes, because you're dealing with major developers here, so obviously
Right.
they don't do a lot of one-offs. Although I suppose you could, if you know a builder who will do that for you. Maybe it's probably possible.
Right. I know Nexity. In fact, I was looking at it this morning at their website, and now apparently, if you have or you want to buy a piece of land and they'll build a house for you, and which is becoming a little more popular, I think, in France now than it used to be.
Yeah.
And maybe because of COVID, but for the most part, when they do these communities, they're either a bunch of individual houses or townhouses or big apartment buildings. So you have to, decide, is that what you want? And can you live in a community? For me, it's easier because right now I'm not there all the time. So I know that there are people there. There are people that are watching it, the house, and it's secure.
Right.
So, and you have neighbors and, in case of anything.
Right.
You can always go to your neighbor.
Right. Have you met them already?
Yeah, and the ones in Provence, I know most of them because there's a lot of French people that live there. There's also some people from the Netherlands that have vacation homes, and a lot of British people that have homes there. Also from Belgium, there's a few. So it's a mix of people. In Paris, I've met 2 or 3 of the neighbors on my floor.
That's not bad.
It's a little different. That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And just from saying hello and just briefly talking to them.
Sure.
But since I'm not there all the time, it's kind of hard to make friendships.
Right. And until you retire, probably you're not gonna become close friends with anybody. And so, how many questions? Did you get a lot of choices to make, like as far as what the finish was going to be like?
Right. Yes. In both of them, they'll give you a brochure with all the different finishes they offer. For instance, in Provence, you could either have tile or you could have carpet. I chose tile because I have allergies. I don't do well with carpets.
Yeah.
So, like the floors are of tile and the stairs made of wood, and then upstairs there's tile. In Provence, for instance, I purchased a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, but the toilet was downstairs. So what I did, I said, I'm not going to be going down the stairs in the middle of the night. So I asked them if they could install a toilet in the upstairs bathroom, and they said sure. And I think they charged me, it was like $100, something to that effect. They just took some little space from the second bedroom, and then they added a toilet upstairs. And then what I've done is I added a sink downstairs, so now I have 1.5 toilets.
That's cool.
Or bathroom. But most of them have, depending on the number or the size of the apartment or house, some of them will give you a full kitchen, some of them will not. For instance, the studio in Paris did not offer studios a full kitchen. They would just install like a sink with a cabinet and a little refrigerator. The one in Provence did something similar, but with a little more. But it's up to you. If you get a bigger apartment, usually they'll put a full kitchen in it.
Yeah.
It all depends on
what you're buying. Yeah.
On what you're buying. Yeah.
Right. All right, so tell us about the process. How did this work?
Okay, usually the way it works is you sign. What's the name of that contract? The first contract you usually sign is something. What is it called? It's called not the acte de vente l'état futur d'achèvement. The sale of the future completion is what it's called.
Right.
VEFA. And there. Usually it's just a contract stating, what the developer is going to do and how you have to pay for the work. The benefit of a new bill, for instance, is that you pay the notaire's fee is only 3% of the purchase price as opposed to 7 or 8% for older properties.
That's a big difference.
a big difference. Yeah, there's also no stamp tax. With the reservation contract or the BEFA contract, it tells you how you have to pay for the house. In other words, you start paying, your deposit is 5% as opposed to 10% in an older home. And after the completion of the foundation is you deposit 35% of the house. Then when the structural works are finished, is another 35%. Then when the home is completed, you pay 25%. So you're up to 95 by now. And then the remainder of the balance you pay at closing. So you have time because these developments take a while to get built. That's another thing. You can't expect, okay, I'm going to have this in 3 months. Usually it takes a year, maybe more. So if you have the time, if you don't mind waiting, that's a good thing to buy. The new builds have 10 years of warranty from the developer. If anything goes bad, they'll come and fix it. And,
water runoffs are a typical problem.
Right.
Like the neighbor's balcony is dripping water onto mine, and I don't like that, or that sort of thing.
And
that's what happens.
I mean, that's not. And usually the association will help you take care of it. Most of these developments have a homeowners association. They are not that expensive, I find. They're a lot cheaper than homeowners association in the U.S., especially in Florida. So you come out paying about 1,200 euros a year for the association fee. Whereas in the U.S., usually in Florida, it be anything between $5,000 to $10,000 a year. So it's not bad. And they are responsible for the communal areas. Like in Provence, there's a pool. So they take care of the pool. They take care of all the, the gardening around the development. So, that's what you're paying for. And they keep the development in good order. So people don't do crazy stuff, paint the house, purple or, something. They have to comply with certain regulations. So everything stays nice within the community. And in Paris, it's the same thing. I mean, you have to, the community takes care of the areas around the building, the common areas inside the building. If anything goes wrong, the association takes care of fixing it. Something that may be within warranty of the builder.
They'll assist you.
With on the other hand, if you want to do something different or add anything, you have to request permission. That's the only part of it.
So have you had to complain about any of these problems? Have you had any problems with the two apartments you've bought on plans?
I know that in Provence there was an issue with the water system, but I wasn't even there. One of the neighbors took care of when the repairman was there and having it fixed, but it was outside the home. That was years ago. The only other problem, the apartment in Paris again, there was an issue. Not my particular studio, but some apartments had an issue with the water, which was also taken care of. I don't know why France and water. It's there's always something.
Who knows?
With water. But that has been really it as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if other people have had other problems, but I haven't heard about them. I mean, the construction in both apartments is very solid. I mean, the walls are so hard, that it's hard to put a nail through them. And they're really solid walls, not like you get in a lot of the U.S. homes that you get, very thin walls. In neither one of the places do I hear noises from the neighbors. Yeah, unless I have my windows open or something, somebody's out there doing something. But otherwise, if you have the windows closed, I don't hear a thing. And, which surprised me.
That's good. Yeah, because that's often a complaint that people have about apartments is that my neighbors are loud,
In Paris, I was surprised.
But
I don't hear anything. It's really, really strange because you don't hear the neighbors next door. I don't hear people upstairs or downstairs. Nothing. So they're obviously built pretty, solid as far as the construction. But as far as you buy one of these things, once you sign the contract, the developer will send you periodically a letter saying, we finished the foundations, we need this much. And then you send them the money, you transfer the money. And then at the end, you have to go to obviously inspect the property, make sure there's nothing wrong, do a walkthrough. If there is something wrong, they'll repair it usually right then and there because they have the people there to do the work. And then you get your key and the final payment goes through. You hand in the final payment. The one in Provence, I want to say, took a couple of years to be finished. And the same thing in Paris, I think. It took about a couple of years to get everything finished.
Right. Yes. And I know that with COVID, there were a lot of delays in construction because of, building materials, because of shutdowns, because of this and that. There are probably a lot of properties that are behind right now.
Luckily, I was before COVID, but still, you have delays, different things. And so if you're in a hurry for a place, no, don't go with new builds. If you can wait,
yes.
Okay. And the good thing about it is that, you don't have to give payments right away. So even if you do get a mortgage, once the developer, they know you have a mortgage, they'll notify the mortgage company and say, if you have a French mortgage, this is due now, and the bank will transfer the money to them directly. So if you have a mortgage in the U.S., that's totally different. And so, and I found it pretty simple to get mortgages in France. So my first property, I paid it outright. What I did is I took a mortgage in my house and I just paid it cash in Florida.
You mean your house in Florida?
And my first property was only and it's right before the euro, the franc changed to a euro. And I paid about maybe 85,000 euros, which was nothing in the area for that area. Not at all. So I just paid it cash and that was that. And, the Paris apartment, I do have a mortgage, but that wasn't difficult to get. A lot of these developers or agents, they work with mortgage companies that take you through the whole process. And it's pretty simple. If you send them the documents they want, and then you have to have a physical, a medical physical, that usually, takes care of getting the mortgage pretty quickly. And they're really good rates. They've been really good rates, in France for mortgages. 1%, 2%, 3%, interest rate. Which makes it better.
The normal mortgage in France is 15 years.
But, if you, at 1%, 2%, you're not paying much interest. You're paying mostly.
Yeah, the principal.
I found the mortgages in France were better than getting a mortgage in the U.S. Because the interest rates are lower.
Yeah, we've done it in both countries. I don't think I don't remember that it was that different. If you have the income, if you have the money, it's never that hard to borrow money.
If you don't have the income, you're not going to get a mortgage anyway. Unless you take a second mortgage in your house because you have equity. In the U.S., that's one way of doing it.
Right.
And that's the way I did it the first time. I've been happy with, both purchases. I'm hoping that I can keep both when I retire because I like both locations.
Yeah.
They offer different things. You can go back and forth, especially with the trains. They're so simple in France. You're there between Paris and Provence. You're in 2.5 hours. You're there.
Right. It's fabulous. So just one more point about the mortgages. You can't get a mortgage in France above a certain age. More than 60, it's like a no way at all. And more than 50, it starts getting harder as well. So
I guess because of the age and the mortality rate, once you hit 60 becomes very difficult to get a mortgage. You may get one. The older you are, the more difficult it is.
Yeah. And also in France, you have to take out life insurance against the mortgage, which you don't have to do in the U.S. Well, I don't know about all states, but where I've bought houses in America, they never made us take out
no.
life insurance to pay off the mortgage in case one of us died.
At least the amount of the policy I pay is minimal. I think it's $20 a month, €20 a month.
Yeah.
And it's good because if you have children, if you want to leave your property to someone, it will be paid for when you die.
Yeah. And the other thing is they do have you do a medical examination, and it's pretty thorough. They, I know doctors hate getting those things to fill out because it's like paperwork, lots and lots of paperwork, which French doctors don't do a lot of paperwork because the national health insurance makes all of that easy. So they're just not used to paperwork. And most French doctors work by themselves. They don't have secretaries that will handle the paperwork. So they don't like doing it. But if you do have a health condition that makes it hard for you to get a mortgage, there's usually an association out there. Like if you have cancer, there's going to be associations of people with cancer who will guarantee your mortgage, and people with diabetes, people with whatever risk factor. You can typically find a company that will insure that mortgage. It'll be a bit more, but
doable, yeah.
It's doable.
Mine, I just went to a medical clinic near my house. I asked the doctor, I need this filled out for France. He just examined me, took my weight, my height, and just wrote it out, signed it, and gave it to me. And that was it. so
wow. Okay.
Yeah, an easy
doctor. Yeah.
I didn't even bother to go to my own doctor. I said, I'll just go to this, down the street and get it done. But it's not, I find, some people like older homes, and there's some beautiful older homes, but a lot of these older homes need a lot of upkeep or repair or upgrade or to refurbish. Whereas in a newer home, you may not get the charm of an older home, but at the same time, that at least for a while, you're not going to have to replace things, the heating system or the plumbing system.
It's going to be decades before you have. You'll have to do paint and that sort of upkeep, but plumbing and electricity and whatever, it's going to be good for a few decades anyway.
I think the only thing I've had to replace because I bought the townhome in Provence. I bought it. I think in the early, I want to say 2001, 2002 when I finally got it. And the only thing I've had to replace since then has been a water heater. And that's it.
Right. And some properties even provide the hot water.
Yes.
So you don't have to have your own water heater.
Obviously the apartments provide the water heater or the hot water. In Provence, they provide the cost of the water is included in your association fee in both properties. So you don't get a water bill directly.
Or sewer bill.
You just get an electric bill. That's the only thing you get.
Yeah.
So in Paris, the heating system is underfloor. The heating system, you get an electric bill, obviously for your heat consumption, but not for your water. That's all part of the association as well.
Yeah.
It isn't bad when you're thinking, okay, I'm paying €1,200 a year for association fees, but that includes my sewer, my water, the upkeep of the property, the pool that they have there.
Right. And probably they'll hit you with bigger bills, if there's major repairs to be done on the pool or on the stucco. It's probably stuccoed, I would assume, so they got to redo stucco. They got to redo elevators. Things like that will come up.
Usually, for instance, something goes wrong with the pool. They'll tell you, this went wrong with the pool. We have to fix the pool. Or the gates, the automatic gates. For some reason, they always have an issue with the automatic gates. And we have to fix the digicode or this or the other thing. And they'll say it's going to cost this much.
Yeah.
Each apartment or house is charged depending on the size of the unit. So if you have a smaller place, you charge less. But there hasn't been anything. I'm trying to think. I think the only thing that I can think that it was maybe €600, €700 for my share was when they added the electric gate in Provence for the community, because they needed an automatic gate for cars to come in and out, because otherwise you had to get out and take the gate. So that was the only thing when they installed that. But I haven't had, thank God, any major charges from the associations.
Yeah.
So they
What do you hear about the resale value? Do you think it's a good deal as far as, does it keep its
The
value?
resale values usually are pretty decent on new properties. Again, because a lot of people know they're newer, and so they don't have to fix things once they get in there. The resale value, obviously, in Paris is greater than the resale value where I'm at in Provence. But I mean, that house in Provence now goes for about a little over 200,000 euros. So it's been more than double. The one in Paris
Yeah.
is quite a bit more. It's almost double the price now, and I've only had it for like, I don't know,
Yeah.
5 years maybe, 4 years. So Paris is always going to be, more, but down
Yeah.
in the south it's not bad. I mean, for being in that small village. But the thing about that little village is the location. I mean, you're near everything. You're near Isola Surge. You're near every major tourist town of the Vaucluse area and the Luberon, which makes it easy to just, Châteauneuf-du-Pape is just around the corner, basically. Everything around
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
pretty close. Or Orange.
Yeah.
So the location is what I was looking for primarily. So the prices have been pretty stable. And now, obviously, in
That's
Provence,
good.
it's higher because everybody wants to go to the country. Everybody from Paris wants to go to the country.
Yes.
I mean, I frequently
Right.
get from the association company, which also does real estate, letters or emails. You want to sell? Do you want to sell? No, not now.
Yeah. We have people knocking on our door regularly to ask if we want to sell.
It's and I'm sure when I go check my mail there, I'm sure this is full with requests for sale.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
right,
Realtors who
yeah,
want to list your
in
house.
Provence it's just
Yeah.
exploded now because all these Parisians that want to go down or have a summer home, and
Yeah.
they all these companies just want to be able to see what they are low in inventory at this point.
Right. So what are some disadvantages to buying from plants? Some cons, I
If
guess.
you don't like living around people and having neighbors close by, because they'll be very close by, that's the main con.
Yeah.
The second one, if you don't like newer properties, if you want a little more character in your property, then obviously that's not the place for you. If you don't like dealing with associations, that's also something that you got to think about, because you're going to have, if you want to do something to the property, you're going to have to request permission from the association, and the community has to vote on it. Like if you want to add something to your patio, like, or extend your patio, or an air conditioning, exactly. Like in Provence,
Yeah.
believe it or not, the houses did not have air conditioning, so everybody requested to put on an air conditioning, and they agreed to it. Another thing was, at that time, you had satellite dishes. It's not like now, so a lot of people wanted satellite dishes, so they approved that. Things like that you have to get, or if you want to, some people want to put canopy on their patio. So things that are
Yeah.
permanent, usually you do have to ask for permission, and the owners are pretty flexible. I found in allowing things, and you do have to submit your plan and where is the
Yeah.
air conditioner going to be. Make sure it's not a noisy air conditioner, that you bother the neighbor. So things, if you don't like having to deal with that, that's not
Yeah.
for you.
Right.
Another
Right.
thing
Right.
is sometimes these new properties like the studio in Paris came basically bare. I mean, I don't want to say bare because the bathroom was done. They, with all the tiling, I requested from the choice they gave me. I had the entry wall, a material put on it, to give it some contrast in the entry wall. The only thing I had to inside was bare. The kitchen was minimal. I don't cook much, but I still wanted a kitchen. So hired, in that case it was Mobalpa, because the company Mobalpa was doing some of the actual interior kitchens for the other
Kitchens.
apartments. So, and they were great to work with to make the kitchen. So, if you want to add something like that, that may be an additional cost, but you're going to have that cost if you want to fix your old house anyway.
So did they have like light
No,
fixtures and stuff like
no,
that, or did you have to
everything
do that?
you put it on. Basically, the way the apartments come, they don't have any curtains. Like for instance, in Provence, they didn't have closets. So that same day I was closing, there was a gentleman there working with a developer who constructed closets. So I said, okay,
Yeah.
so I had him build a closet in the master bedroom, and he did it right away. They'll have people around them. They also had a company there that would install curtains and light fixtures. And so obviously that's an extra charge. And I actually bought the dining room table and a hutch from them because it kind of matched the Provençal look. So things like that. They'll have people there on the days they're closing, because they have, usually do it within a week or two. And kind of offering, if you want to do this extra for your house or that extra for your house. But as far as the
Right.
bathrooms and the tiling they give you a pretty wide choice. Like in Paris, I went to they had an office right across the street. Next city did. So I went in there and they had all the tiles and the flooring and also the flooring and the walls and different things for you to see, so you can choose from. And so you just pick and they'll install it for you. So,
Yeah.
So at least that part is done.
And they didn't make any mistakes, like, oh, I told you to put this in, but you put that in instead.
There was something I'm trying to remember. For instance, in the bathroom in Paris, they forgot to install in the shower like a little the seal on the glass. So I put on the shower and gave the water out the shower and go, what the heck? So
Yeah.
so I got a hold of them right away. They came and did it. Things like that. When you're on the walkthrough, you need to check. Or the cabinet is a little lopsided. Okay, then they'll fix it. Or, there's a scratch on this, they'll go and fix it. So things like that you can.
But you do have to be there to look at all of that stuff.
You have to be there to do the walkthrough of the house. Then definitely.
Yeah.
You can do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I was just looking at before at the Next City website because I hadn't been there in a while, and now they're doing virtual sales online, houses, and I'm going, okay, you got to be there at some point because I would.
So now you've done it twice.
Do it.
Would you?
Yes.
Would you do it again?
Yes. Not planning to. unless I sell both properties and get a bigger one somewhere. But yes, I really don't have any major complaints about the process with either one. Maybe I got lucky and I had.
And you speak French?
Yeah, I'm pretty fluent.
Okay.
But a lot of these people now speak English. Like, I know that down in Provence, and this was back in the early 2000s, they had someone who spoke English because they had a lot of people buying from England and Ireland. So they wanted to make sure to communicate with these buyers. So the agent spoke, broken English, but spoke English. In Paris, it's in French, but I didn't really need it. The attorney, I did have to go to the attorney's office to sign the lease, and the sales deed. But she spoke no English, but that was okay. But most of them you can find. So if you say I don't speak French, I find that they'll find somebody to help you with it.
Yeah, they'll find somebody who can speak English to you. Yeah. And I've got to say, I mean, you wrote some really good notes about how to do this, and so it's I would recommend that people visit the website if you're thinking of doing this. If you're planning on doing this, go see Maria's notes on this because it's very detailed with links to things and everything. So that's super helpful. Do you know other Americans who've done this, or are you the only one?
As far as I know, I'm the only one. In Provence, I know that I'm the only American that in the whole complex. And it's funny because the French are a little perplexed. Like, what? Especially when you tell them you live in Florida, they go, "Why do you want to come here?" And I tell them no because I love France. I was the only American in that, and I think still am the only one in that development. And in the apartment building, I think I am too. I don't think there's any other American there. At least not from the names in the mailboxes. But by name doesn't sound American anyway, because I was born in Cuba, so but I haven't come across any Americans in that building.
Yeah, yeah. And how big of a development is it? Like, were you buying from big developments, or is it
not
more?
too big. I would say the one in Provence has about 30, 40 houses.
Okay.
Paris the building is 9 floors, so it's a lower building compared to the ones across the park, which are huge. And it doesn't have, it's not you don't feel like it's a really huge building. And each area is kind of separated, so, you go on one side, and then I would say on my floor, or every floor, I would think there's 5 apartments, maybe. Mm-hmm. So that's not too bad. And, there's 2 in the corner, 5 apartments. So it's not a big, complex, so you see people all the time. You hardly see anyone, actually. You meet people in the elevator, usually.
Right.
And that's one thing. I also wanted a building with an elevator, because, going up and down the stairs at a certain age doesn't, it's not good. And, that one has a pretty good size elevator.
Right.
They also offer parking if you wanted to buy parking. I didn't buy any parking. On second thought, I should have bought parking, but, I'm really don't plan to have a car in Paris. So, but, you can rent the parking space for a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think that was an extra 20-something thousand euros. And, so a lot of
there's
people,
probably like an underground parking lot for
it's an underground
residents.
Yeah. It's underground residence. And the building has an area where you can put away your bikes, or your strollers for babies, tricycles. It's a secure area for the people to put their stuff. I mean, it's most of the apartments. My studio is not too small, but that was one studio, and then there was a smaller one that I decided not to do it. But the thing about these properties, especially in Paris, is that you have to buy them fast. I mean, by the time I had looked at this building before it was even built, completely off plan on the internet, I contacted the company. By the time I contacted the company, which was maybe a few weeks later, I only had choice of like 2 places, two floors. I wanted a higher floor. I'm on the second, which is the third, but I wanted something at a higher floor. Everything was sold out, just about.
Right. And this is a problem everywhere in France. I know that in my village, they're doing a new development of, I think it's 18 apartments.
Right.
And they were sold before there was even a sign that said we're building something. Right. They had started knocking down an older building that they didn't want to keep. So I knew something was up, but it was all sold before they started doing anything at all.
Right.
So
yeah, because there are no signs. And in fact, I remember going to when the building was being built in Paris. I remember going out there. There was no sign about for sale or anything.
Right.
You saw the building, but it was being built. There was nothing about where to buy it. So
you see signs about lots for sale because they are so expensive that that's worth advertising. Yeah. So, in my area, you have just a building, a lot, a piece of land to build a house on is going to be 250,000 euros.
Oh, yeah.
And so they advertise those.
Right.
But the apartments that are going to be, sharing a wall and whatever, they typically you never see an ad. You have to know that it's going to happen.
It's going to happen, right?
So you'd have to be in contact with that company probably months before you decide, and then once they tell you we have something, you have to make up your mind quick, like you said.
Oh no, I had to make up my mind that right then and there. I mean, I was on the phone and
send them a check right away.
We have this and this, and which one do you want?
Right.
And I said, okay, that one. Okay.
And if you send your 5% in, within a few days, then you're okay.
Within a few days.
Yeah.
Right. And it was like, okay, yeah. In Provence, it was a little slower, but in Paris, it was like, no, we need to know now. Okay. So it's a little, you have to kind of be prepared for that.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing to me how fast they move. And in Provence, as a matter of fact, the only reason I think that town was doing that is because the lady, there's a chateau in that village. I forgot what duchess or something. And she had, the lady had a lot of land in the chateau, and I guess she had to pay taxes, didn't have money for the taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sold part of the land to the developers.
Yeah.
And that's like my property, the back of it is a chateau. And
this happens a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. This happens a lot.
And that's how it got built. But yeah, the properties there right now looking at Net City, I saw a few, like 2 buildings being built in Toulouse.
Yeah.
I don't know where in Toulouse, but they're brand new. They haven't even broken ground, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
And they're selling in Toulouse.
Right.
And that's when you have to get them, because that's usually when you get them cheaper too.
Right.
Because it's the pre-construction prices as opposed to post-construction. But the sale, and even in Paris, in that neighborhood, after I bought that one, I said, maybe I should get something a little bigger and sell this one. So I contacted Leggett, the real estate agents, and I met with an agent, and he said to me, I'm sorry, but everything that's planning to be built here is sold.
Wow.
And I said, everything? Because there's quite a number of buildings that they built it. Because everything is sold.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so much for that.
Not this time. Maybe in a few years. And if you bought a place that suits you, that's fine.
Right. Yeah. If I want to, it's something bigger, I'll just, sell and buy something bigger. But so far, I mean, for me, they fit well. So, I don't have any problems with it.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Maria, for talking to me
pleasure.
and sharing your experience with this, because this is not something we had ever talked about on the podcast. We had talked about renovating homes and,
right.
older homes and whatever, but this is a very different process. And it sounds like it's a good thing to look into if you plan to retire in France, especially if you don't need it right away.
Right. Right.
It would be
or if you just want a vacation home to go occasionally or every year, and you want a second home, that's a good thing to do, because you can spend a month, 2 months, or a year if you want, and you have something already there. And the thing is that, if you have a vacation home, you tend to continue going back to that vacation home as opposed to going other places.
That's true.
But again, you have a base in Europe where you can go to other places.
Right.
So you also have that option. So you got to think about it.
No,
my dog is about to start barking.
Well, I have to say goodbye because we've been talking a long time. But thank you so much. Hello, little dog.
Sorry about the dog.
It's no problem.
My pleasure, Annie.
Merci beaucoup.
Nice
Au revoir.
Bye-bye. Au revoir.
Again, I want to thank my patrons for supporting the show and giving back. Patrons get several exclusive rewards. For doing so, you can see them at patreon.com/join us. Patreon, join us. No spaces or dashes. Thank you all for supporting the show. Some of you for many years now. You are amazing. And a shout out this week to new patrons, Carol Stoffel and Letha Gojer. Thank you so much for becoming patrons and making this podcast possible. And this week I published a French history brief about the day when Gertrude Stein asked Picasso to make her a portrait. At first, she was not happy with the result, but being a very smart lady, she soon realized that she was witnessing art history in the making, and she made her peace with it. Another way to support this podcast is to hire me to be your itinerary consultant. When you sign up, I send you a list of questions. Then I write up my advice based on your situation. And then we spend an hour on the phone discussing the plan, so you get to ask me all your questions. If that's something you'd like to do, go to joinusinfrance.com/boutique. And Renee sent me a note about what I shared on the podcast regarding QR codes for US citizens. She wrote, My husband and I submitted documents to obtain the COVID QR code for travel in France. We arrive in France the first weekend of September. Our submission materials to franceintheus.org was Friday, August 13th. My husband received his QR code on Monday, August 16th. So that was really fast. I mean, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and he got it on Monday. So that's 4 days, which included a weekend. That matters to French people. And then she got hers on the 19th. So hers was just a few days later, but it arrived really quickly. We were able to transfer the codes to the Tusanti COVID app and have printed copies as well. Thank you for all you do to bring France to your listeners. We enjoy Jonas in France podcast very much. Wonderful. Thank you, Renee, for that feedback. Yes, I'm hearing that it's working. And, even if it's not working and you don't get the QR code as fast as you'd like, you can always do a PCR test and then import that into Tusanti COVID. And then you'll have the QR code it doesn't matter if you have it from vaccination or from a negative PCR test. So it's really, it's going to work one way or the other. The question that keeps coming up is it safe to visit France at this time? Let me give you some numbers so you can make your own decision. When I look at the data for all of France, 70% of French people have received one dose of the vaccine and 60% have received both doses. By contrast, the CDC reports that 60% of Americans have had one dose and 51% have had two. So you're more likely to run into vaccinated people in France than in the US, just from the numbers. If you look at the population that's eligible for vaccination, so that's people over 12 years old, then 82% of French people have had one dose and 70% have had both doses. The US is also about 10% behind in both of those numbers. Having said that, vaccination rates are not the same all over the country. French islands in the Caribbean are doing terribly. The best vaccination rates are in Brittany, Normandy, Aquitaine, and the western side of France generally. The whole area around the Mediterranean is where the virus circulation is highest in mainland France, because that's where people are on vacation and having a good time. Virus be damned. Sadly, again, French islands in the Caribbean are off the charts when it comes to virus circulation, but that's not because of vacationers, it's because of scary low vaccination rates. This is a preventable disease by now. We have effective vaccines. They are free. They are readily available to anyone who lives in France, and that's a huge privilege. But I have to acknowledge that the number of daily vaccinations is going down in France overall. Is it that it's August, or is it that we're going up against the wall of stubborn people? It's probably some of both, to tell you the truth. I hope that we get to 90% of eligible French people fully vaccinated by the end of the year. And I hope that will be enough to protect the immunocompromised and kids under 12 who, through no fault of their own, cannot get this vaccine at this time. I don't have much of a personal update this week. It's been a quiet week in my little corner of France. So I did a bit of gardening. I saw a cool video that showed a Frenchman who had a problem with his orchard. His fruit trees were invaded by bugs. And not being a commercial grower, I mean, he had a big enough orchard, but it's not a commercial grower, so he couldn't use chemicals to get rid of the bugs. In France, everyday citizens cannot buy any more chemical anything anywhere. Only commercial growers can do that, and even they have restrictions. So this guy, he saw in an old book that a certain breed of chickens loves to eat those bugs. So he went to Brittany to buy the chickens. They happen to be black chickens. The chickens went to work, and in short order, 80% of the bugs were gone. So I think that's really cool. Why poison the land with chemicals when you could just get a few chickens? Because then you get eggs too. So We're going to birthday parties this weekend and next, actually. Both will be outside. Some socializing is happening, but even fully vaccinated, I'm not going indoors with anyone if I don't know their vaccination status. I had to do some grocery shopping last week, and now that the health pass is in place for large grocery stores and large commercial centers, I guess we call them centres commerciaux, I only go to the stores where I know they check the QR code at the door. Small grocery stores are not required to do that, so I just don't go to those anymore. I know that some people think that the health pass is killing their business, but I think it could be the opposite. If only the message was put through to people that the health pass affords a great measure of safety to people like me. And when you add mask wearing on top of that, which we're all still doing, it adds another layer of safety, and that's good for everyone. If you enjoy the show, introduce a friend to the podcast and show them how to listen. Next week on this podcast, an episode with Elise about the Chateau of Chantilly. We visited recently with our friend Patricia, and it was lovely seeing it, and it was even nicer hearing all the historical background from Elise. I think you will enjoy it. Send questions or feedback to Annie@joinusinfrance.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you join me next time so we can look around France together. Au revoir. The Join Us in France travel podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Annie Sargent and copyright 2021 by Addicted to France. It is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.